On today's episode, we have an in-depth review on the lightest baitcaster that I've ever used. We also quickly recap the Bassmaster Opens at Lake Ouachita, and in today's mailbag segment, we tackle deep water, swivels on leaders, and swimbait head design. All that and more in this episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello everybody, I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
Welcome to the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. World-class fishing gear, unmatched personal service. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. As always, there is no Tackle Talk Podcast without American Legacy Fishing and Outdoors. And you guys know they're the first place that you should check for rods, reels, line, baits. But right now they have some killer sales going on. Like the G Loomis GLX rods right now are as low as $299.99. That is a killer deal for G Loomis GLX rods. They have the Daiwa Revros, normally $69.99, now on sale for $34.99. So 50% off. They have the Shimano SLX MGL 70s in the left-handed models, normally $150, right now $99. They have their exclusive colors of the Beast Coast Lil Magnums in stock, the Natural, the Brown Magic, and the GP Blue. The World Class and Elite models from Fenwick are now in stock. They have great deals on used gear, and they got some new gear in. They got the Shimano SLX 70A, the casting reel, $149 in stock. Shimano Metanium DC 70A is in stock as well. The new Berkeley Powerbait Nessies. All of that you can find over at AmericanLegacyFishing.com. And if you're not an Elite member, sign up because you'll save 10% on every single order you place throughout the entire year. You get free shipping all year. It's one of those things that just pays for itself in like the first 10 minutes that you have the membership. So go sign up for that. Go check it out. And as always, if what you're looking for is not on sale, use code TACKLETALK10. Tackle Talk 10 saves you 10% off your entire purchase. Some exclusions apply, but not many. Almost everything that's regularly priced on that website, you can save 10% off with code TACKLETALK10 over at www.americanlegacyfishing.com. All right, everybody, the first thing we're going to talk about here really quickly, it's not an Elite Series event, it's not a BPT event, but the Bassmaster Opens just wrapped up at Lake Ouachita in Hot Springs, Arkansas, February 15th through 17th. So really quickly here, we're going to go through your top 10 in reverse order just to keep you guys up to date on things. So 10th place in the Bassmaster Opens at Lake Ouachita, Zach, I'm going to butcher this last name, I'm sorry, Zach, Gautremont, however you say that, Goutremont. Sorry about that. 9th place, Evan Kung. 8th place, Paul Marks. 7th place, Christian Ostrander. 6th place, Andrew Hargrove. 5th place, Blake Schroeder. 4th, Logan Johnson. 3rd, Andy Newcomb. 2nd, Matt Baker. And 1st place, Jeremiah Kindy. So Jeremiah wins this with 52 pounds and 3 ounces, takes home $44,000 plus in cash, and beats Matt Baker in 2nd place by about 6 pounds or so. So that is the Bassmaster Opens at Lake Ouachita. The reason that you obviously watch the Bassmaster Opens is to see who's going to qualify for the Elite Series next year. If we're going through here really fast, just some names that you guys might recognize from this event. 13th place, Dakota Ebear. 14th, Ishman Rowe. 30th place was Koya Fujita. 31st, Cody Meyer. 33rd, Tucker Smith. 36th, Matt Pangrak. 49th, Luke Palmer, and then a couple more as we go down the list here. But that is your Bassmaster Opens results from Lake Ouachita. All right, today we are going to go right into this. We're not going to spend a ton of time on news or anything like that. We have a very in-depth episode today where we're going to do a good old-fashioned gear review, and we're going to take a look at a piece of gear that's probably out of most people's price range, myself included, but I wanted to review this for a few reasons. One, we've got quite a few requests to do it. Two, it's a very unique reel that we're going to talk about today for a few reasons. And number three, I think there's a bigger lesson that we can take away from this reel in general. So today we are reviewing the very stylish, the very expensive Bates Hundo. So the company Bates, B-A-T-E-S, really came on the scene, I'd say about a year or two ago. I'm not totally sure how long they've been around. I think they started maybe 3 years ago. They started as a rod company and now have kind of gone more toward the reel side of things. They're based out of Texas. And I did have a chance to talk to one of the guys back at ICAST last year. Very nice folks, and as all businesses should be, right? Very proud of their product and its specs and its differentiators. So remember that, because we'll get to some of those here in a little bit. But as always, here on Tackle Talk, I got my hands on one of these through American Legacy Fishing, and my intention was to fish this reel hard and report back to you guys everything that I learned about what I liked and didn't like about this reel. So no unboxings, no initial reviews here. I went out, I fished this thing hard all fall and all winter so far as well. So we're going to go through the specs here really fast per the Baits website, and then we'll get to our in-depth review and then our conclusion. So the website says, introducing the Baits Hundo, roughly 20% smaller, 100% baits with the same quality and craftsmanship you've come to expect. The Hundo features a gunmetal gray anodized aluminum frame, fully CNC'd with 6061 T6 bar stock on our 9-axis machine. And just to be sure there's no gimmicks or simple metallic coatings, we've left a few of the machine paths roughly into the frame, making the Hundo an industrial marvel. Beyond just a smaller 100-sized frame, this reel boasts our new dual braking system along with a shallower spool so those finesse fishermen can easily dial in lighter lines and lures. We've upgraded some internal components as well, including lighter aluminum gears and improved bearings, which are a combination of 10 HAC stainless steel bearings plus 2 high-precision NMB ball bearings and one-way stainless steel ball bearing. If your target species or preferred rigging demands a slighter, I think it's probably supposed to say lighter. If your target species or preferred rigging demands a lighter but more fine-tuned machine, yeah, I think that's what they meant, lighter, you won't be disappointed in the Hundo. And then it says the details here: 100 size frame, 7-to-1 and 8-to-1 gear ratios, CNC precision cut 6061 T6 bar stock aluminum one-piece body, 10 plus 2 plus 1 bearings, 28 inches per crank line pickup on the 7-to-1, and 32 inches per crank line pickup on the 8-to-1, adjustable dual brakes, 88 millimeter aluminum crank arm, gunmetal gray anodized anti-corrosion finish, custom neoprene reel case, built to last, no plastic toys here, 14 pounds of drag, weight 5 ounces, and mono line capacity for 14 pounds is 100 yards, and braided line capacity for 30 pounds is 100 yards. So when you first open up the box here and you look at this reel, it is very impressive. And it's very, I would say, like Apple-esque in its presentation. Obviously, different colors. The box is navy blue, but very minimalistic with the logo and the text. And then you open it, and the reel is right there in a custom-molded foam insert with the Baits logo in the top left of the foam. And it just looks first class. From the time you open the box, it looks as it should, right? If you're spending the money on this reel, you want a first-class experience from start to finish. And at the start of this, you're definitely getting it. And in all transparency here, you should get this experience because this reel costs $375. Yes, almost 400 bones for this little guy. So we're going to hold it to a $375 standard here. And when you open the box, at least, it portrays that high-end look and feel. So the next thing is when you pick this reel up right off the bat, this reel feels different than any reel that I've ever owned. It's small. It's like a 100 size reel. Obviously, it said that in the specs. And I have fairly small hands. And when you put this reel in your hands, this thing fits perfectly. It feels very comfortable palming this reel as you sit there and you kind of play with it in your hands. This, to me, again, as a guy that does not have giant hands, I'm a pretty short, smaller dude. So this reel, to me, feels very, very comfortable in the hand. And the one thing that you notice right off the bat as you look at this in your hand is the outer body. This reel has that anodized aluminum, they call it, right, the one-piece CNC frame that's made out of that really lightweight aluminum, and it starts like, I guess they say, like as a block of aluminum, and then it CNCs this thing from that one single piece. It's very solid in your hands. It looks great. It feels great. The materials that it feels like this reel is made out of at least feel different than any reel that I currently have in my house, in my garage, in my kayak, anywhere that I own. And the cool part is they mentioned it sort of in the description there where they said they'd left some pieces of this sort of bare, like the CNC had just got done with it. So most of this reel is polished. It looks super nice and you can obviously tell, but then there are certain pieces of this reel where they didn't polish it and they left that kind of rough CNC just off the floor kind of look to it. So it's really interesting. You can see the little grooves where the CNC machine was kind of cutting away at this aluminum. Very cool. Industrial look. The only places that I can really see it are under the reel seat, which means means that by the time you put it on the rod, you never see it. But when you take it off, you do get a chance to kind of look at the craftsmanship of this reel, and it is very interesting to see those kind of lines that go around as that CNC machine, has that little point on there and it starts to carve this thing up. So that's pretty cool in my eyes. That's obviously Bait's number one claim to fame here, is that one-piece CNC machined frame. And that anodized aluminum frame really gives this reel the lightest in-hand weight that I've probably ever experienced from a low-profile bait casting reel. The box, if you read it, it claims 5 ounces, which is insanely light for a bait casting reel, but I took mine with my line on it, as I'm going to go out and fish it, because again, I don't fish reels without line on them, so I don't really care how much they weigh without line, because I'm practically never going to use them that way. So with the line on it that I was actually out there using on the water, when I put it on my scale that I use to weigh everything, I'm a nerd, I weigh all kinds of baits and rods and reels and all kinds of stuff. When I put it on my scale, it weighs in at 5.4 ounces. So that to me is the actual usable weight, 5.4. Yes, it might weigh 5 ounces straight out of the box, but you don't fish a reel straight out of the box. You fish it with line on it. So I have like 10 or 12 pound fluoro on this right now. It's completely spooled up. I just took it off of my rod, literally cut my line and put it on the scale. So 5.4 ounces. For reference, my Shimano Corrado K, my favorite reel probably that I've used in the past couple years, is 8.4 ounces. So a 3 ounce weight reduction from my everyday reel to this 5.4 ounce Baits Hundo. So the frame and the weight are this reel's bread and butter, no questions asked. And it's the thing that the company, Baits, harps on consistently. It's light, and that frame is that one-piece CNC'd aluminum. But again, the story of this reel is not told in the specs. It's not told as we sit here and can read descriptions or whatever from the company. The story of this reel is told on the water. So, like I said, I fished this reel pretty hard for probably 5 or 6 months, and let's jump into both the good and the bad of what I thought about this reel. Let's start with the good. The positives of this reel is in your hand, on the rod, this reel feels unlike anything else that I've ever used. It is scary light, and it makes your whole combo feel completely different than it would with a normal 8-ish ounce reel on it. Now, where I get confused is whether this reel is a true BFS reel or it's just a regular baitcaster that feels lighter and has a smaller spool, so it feels like it should be a BFS reel, even though it's just more of a really scary light everyday baitcaster. And after using it and fishing it hard again for a couple months now, I really think it's the second option there. I really think this is a reel that's best suited as a regular reel with regular weighted lures versus a true ultra finesse BFS setup. And the reason that I say that is the braking system that we'll get to here in a little bit. But the reel itself to me felt best as a jerk bait and a topwater reel. So this was a reel that felt really good on like a 6'10" to a 7-foot medium casting rod. I was using it for spooks in the fall and topwaters, and then when winter got here, I started using it for suspending jerk baits. And I fished everything from Smithwicks to Husky Jerks to Vision 110s. I threw 6 Sense Provokes, Lucky Craft Pointers, Jackal Re-Ranges, all my normal jerk baits on this the past month or two, and this combo was really fun to throw those on because paired up with, like, I think I had it on a Fenwick World Class for a little bit, I had it on a Shimano X Pride B for a little bit, I had it on a Dobbins for a little bit, all of my jerk bait rods that I have around here to play around with, and between those rods, those really nice, good rods that I like, and this insanely light reel, it made the whole combo kind of feel like a toy, but it wasn't a toy. It was definitely real. It could handle, big fish, the daily grind of those fat fall smallmouth and largemouth that I was out there trying to catch with this thing. So the weight reduction of the reel did come in handy for those techniques where you have the rod tip down. It's that cadenced retrieve of a jerk bait or a spook where you're palming that reel in your hand and then you're working the rod with your whole wrist. And it's so much easier on your wrist for those techniques because you don't get the fatigue that you get with an 8-9 ounce reel, right? You have this really small, lightweight reel, this good rod, and overall the combo is much more enjoyable for fishing 3, 4, 5 hours at a time of working your wrist back and forth like that. So fatigue, it definitely cut down on. It definitely made it a lot more enjoyable in terms of sitting there and bam, 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 right? Working that rod over and over again all day long. It just made it that much easier. but it also casted really well. And the braking system that it has on here worked fine. We'll get to the braking system in a second because I think that's going to fall a little bit more into the negatives, but it worked fine for normal size baits. It worked fine in the wind. It wasn't anything again to write home about, but I didn't have too many issues dialing it in because of the simplicity and the lack of options in the braking system. Another touch that I really liked about this reel is the knobs. It has these like tan textured rubber knobs that feel great, whether it's warm or cold outside, whether your hands are dry or wet, it didn't matter. Those grips performed great. Even a couple weeks ago, it was freezing cold. It was a miserable day. My hands are wet. There's snow out. It's just like gross. And those knobs felt great the entire time. I definitely liked these type of knobs more so than your traditional harder plastic or harder rubber knobs that most reels have. I would also like to give this reel a plus for just overall look. It's silver. It's very sleek, very eye-catching, and I would say that it looks the part of a $300-ish reel. And then the final thing that I will say on the pro side of things that I really did like about this reel, and I'm sure there will be some people that will hate it, is that everything on this reel clicks. So the drag star clicks. When you loosen or tighten the drag, click, 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 you can tell how much you're either backing off or how much you're putting on with that drag as you're turning it. So I do like that. The drag itself clicks, very similar to a spinning reel. So when you pull the line out, again, tick, 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 you can hear that and you get that sort of audible cue that your drag is being engaged. Now, for me, it doesn't make a ton of difference because I don't use the drag on my casting reels a lot. I'm one of those guys that actually clicks the thumb bar and then, thumbs the spool if I need to give that fish drag versus actually messing with the drag star. But if you actually use drag on your bait casters, I could see this being a real positive because, again, I like that audible cue of knowing how much drag is being pulled out, how fast it's being pulled out, and if I need to tighten or loosen it. The other thing, the tension knob itself clicks. Again, I like that. When you're loosening or tightening that tension knob on the fly, you get those clicks. So every time you can tell how much or how little you actually loosened or tightened that tension knob. And then the brakes click too. You loosen them, you tighten them. There's only that little dial over on the side of the reel. So that to me clicks, again, overall plus when every single thing that I can adjust on this reel, I can hear it adjusting and I can use that as a cue versus really having to stare and look at it. All right, we'll get back to our review here in just a second, but first we are brought to you in part by RTIC coolers. So whether you need a hard cooler for your boat or for your tailgate parties or whatever you need, whether you need a soft cooler for kayak trips, for camping trips, for taking lunch to work, right? It doesn't even have to be outdoors. Whether you just need a new tumbler or a coffee mug for your morning commute, RTIC has you covered. You can head over to www.rticoutdoors.com and check out their huge selection of everything that you need to make the outdoors or every day a better experience. And if you're listening to this right now, they probably still have their President's Day sale going on. So if you go over to the website, rticoutdoors.com, they have up to $50 off ultralight coolers. I have a 32 quart and a 52 quart. Both of them are awesome. You can go over right now and they have the 32 quart starting at $119 and the 52 quart starting at $149, well under half the price of the other guys. So go check them out. Again, www.rticoutdoors.com. Keep the adventure going with RTIC. All right, let's get back to our review here. The next thing, as always, with any reel, we also had some negatives. And for $375 for a price point on this reel, I think it had a few that I would at least bring up in terms of things that I would like to see fixed on a reel that is this expensive. So the first one that drove me crazy is when you open the side plate, the entire side plate pops off. And it would be one thing, right? I have like a $99 Pro qualifier in front of me. That whole side plate pops off, but that's a $99 reel. Okay, I can get over that. But a $375 reel, I would hope that when you're out there on the water, you don't have the opportunity to completely lose your side plate in the water or drop it or do whatever. And now your whole day is ruined and your $375 reel is ruined until you can maybe email them and take care of a warranty and get a replacement piece. So I didn't like that. I like the hinges on side plates. So as I open up my, Corrado, for instance, you open it and it swings open. So you can't lose that side piece. Even the older Shimanos, right? The Bantams and stuff a lot of times did that kind of stuff where they actually, just swung open. You don't have the chance to completely ruin your day by dropping half your reel in the water. So I would have liked to see a side plate that stays attached. Next, I would say is the lack of braking options. And this is where, again, I could sound like a complete idiot here because I know we just read the description where it says dual braking system. I don't know where the dual braking system on this reel is. I'm looking at it. I have it in front of me. I used it for months. The only thing I can see on a braking system is magnetic brakes on the side. You can go 1 through 10 on the magnetic brakes, and that is it. When you open it up, they are clearly magnetic brakes. You can see them in there. I don't understand where the other part of this dual braking system is, unless there's some sort of technology in here that they're calling dual braking by adjusting this thing 1 through 10. Or, again, I don't know. I would assume they're not doing it, but unless they're trying to call the tension knob the second version of this, which is not part of your braking system. So I don't know where the dual braking system on this thing is. I've looked at it, I have fished it hard, and I'm just not really seeing it. So it's got a single 1 through 10 knob on the side that you can adjust the magnetic brakes, and that seems to be about it for the brakes, which is why, again, I'm going to put this as a negative. I would have liked to seen more options for my braking. On a $375 reel, I would like a true dual braking system. I would like to be able to open this reel up and see centrifugal brakes in here that I could adjust, and I don't see that. I mean, you can take the whole spool out. I've got it out right now. I'm not seeing anything else I can adjust except those magnetic brakes. So I'm not sure there. I really would have liked to seen other options here for more fine tuning of your brakes. And it didn't seem like, even when I was playing around with the 1 through 10 on the sides, if they're really, saying that does two things versus one thing, I wasn't feeling it. I was feeling that this just kind of felt like normal magnetic brakes, and that was really what I was getting with this reel. So for $375, I would like to see some sort of internal brakes that I can mess with too, again, to really fine tune this reel, especially if you're out here trying to market this to like super finesse type lures. I would like to be able to tinker with it more. And then the last negative I'm going to say here is going to be a really weird one. I hope I'm able to explain this okay, but this reel made me hate switching back and forth between this combo and my other combos, because this reel is so unique and so lightweight that it made my other combos feel so different when I would pick up one of the other 3 or 4 rods that I'd have with me at any given time, and it really messed with me as I sat there and switched through my combos. So I would go from this combo to my standard Texas rig or jig combo or something, and it would feel like a ton of bricks because I got so used to this insanely light combo that when you put anything else in your hands, it doesn't feel right. And so you can say, well, Andrew, that's good on the reel, right? It's pushing the limits of all of your other combos, and in a perfect world, all of your reels would be this light and you wouldn't have that issue. And I don't really think that's the case, because this type of reel doesn't have a place to me in a beefy, tough technique application like frogging, flipping mats, Alabama rigs, deep cranking. I'm not going to use a reel like this for those type of things. This is a specialized reel for a certain niche in my eyes, and I don't want this reel on my flipping stick. In fact, I put this reel on my flipping stick when I first got it just to see what it would do, and it changed the balance point of that rod by 1.5 inches up the blank. So now that rod was much more tip heavy than it was before with my normal 8.4 ounce reel on it, and that's not what I want. There's a time and place for this type of reel, but it makes that combo such an outlier that it messes with you while you're out there on the water switching back to your other rods. So I'm a baseball guy, so it's kind of like swinging a Major League Baseball regulation wooden bat around all day, and you're doing it for 6 hours, and then you set it down and you pick up a T-ball bat and you start swinging that around for 2 hours. And then when you get used to the T-ball bat, you switch back to the MLB bat and it feels like a ton of bricks. That makes that MLB bat feel way heavier than it did at the beginning of the day before you use the T-ball bat. The same thing happens here with this reel. It ruins the continuity of all of your other rod and reels in your lineup because it's so different. So I know that's a weird one, but that was how I felt out there on the water as I was going back and forth. And then the final thing that I want to talk about here about this reel before we get to my final thoughts is a subject that I'm not quite sure how to do this correctly, but I'm going to do my best. And I want to start by saying this is not a personal shot at baits, because a lot of companies do something very similar to this, but this one in particular just kind of irked me the wrong way. So this company and their posts and their whole sort of demeanor indirectly claim a lot of U.S. and Texas pride with this product in particular. In fact, I have a couple of their Instagram posts up right now. One of the captions says, and I quote, "Not a random copycat reel made from plastic, 100% in-house designed and engineered in Texas. 9-axis CNC machine precision cut frame, no BS gimmicks." And that's a pretty firm stance, right? You have a unique product, you're implying these Texas roots, and you're saying that you're bucking the trend of just copying some other reel that already exists and bringing it here. The other post that I have here from Baits says, in-house engineering and quality control in Texas, USA. We design and cut our own gears and do not buy standard parts off the shelf. We are not another plastic frame baitcaster with a new logo slapped on the side. We're changing the reel game up one design at a time. So that one echoes the same sentiments as the first one, right? In-house engineering, quality control, Texas, USA. In the first post, they claim 100% in-house design and engineered in Texas. And then in the second post, they say in-house engineer and quality control in Texas, USA. And one of the reasons that we did this reel and we did this review, and I picked this up, is because I had a lot of people emailing me and DMs and stuff, sending me pictures of these reels and saying, how cool is it that there's someone here making reels in the United States that's bucking the trends, that has this really cool, unique product. And I want you to pay close attention to their words. Nowhere in any of those posts did it say made in the USA. It says engineered and quality controlled in the USA. And that's very different. So engineering could mean something as simple as tweaking one little thing or changing the shape of the handle or, just deciding what parts to go on this thing, the size of a knob, whatever. Almost anything can mean engineering. And then quality control just means you see it before it goes out. So you probably put them in the box here in the United States. That is a very different thing. And I honestly didn't think anything about this until it came time to do this review, and I looked all over the box for wherever it says made in whatever, right? Every product in the history of mankind says made in the USA, made in China, made in Japan. And I was looking for that on the box, on the reel, and I could not find it anywhere. I mean, all my other reels, everything that I ever had, my Pro Qualifier right beside me says made in China. My Corrado E says made in Japan. My Corrado K says made in Malaysia. But this Baits had nothing on the reel or the box, and it kind of set off a red flag for me a little bit. I thought that was weird. Why wouldn't you label the country that your product is made in, like every other product that I've ever had? And I don't know the legality of this, but a quick Google search tells me that every product label in the United States must indicate country of origin. So I don't know how legally binding that is. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know any of that. But it seems like every other product I've ever owned says made in, fill in the blank here, somewhere on it. So I thought it was really weird that this reel or the box or anything I could find on it had it nowhere. So I did the next best thing I could. I went to the Baits website, and after some really hard digging, I was able to find at least something. It was like a blog post from a while ago, and it says, I quote, "Machining and final assembly are accomplished overseas before being freighted back to us at Baits, and then we personally package and ship all products," end quote. So that to me sounds like a very fancy way of saying made in China, right? Assembly and machining are accomplished overseas. But I didn't want to assume that because that might mean Japan, it might mean somewhere else. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of this because it was one of the reasons a lot of people were writing in and talking about this reel. There was this like implied made in USA feel about this reel, but I couldn't find it anywhere. So the next thing I did is I messaged Baits themselves. I went directly on Instagram, I shot them a message, and I said, again, quote here, "Hey guys, quick question. I'm doing a review of the hundo for the show, but I'm having a tough time finding where it's made. I can't find anything on the reel or the box, and online all I can find on your website is machining and final assembly are accomplished overseas. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks, Andrew." And as of recording this, it is a day later, and the message says, "Seen 1 day ago." So I got left on red on that one, and they did not answer the question, unfortunately. So at this point, it's just like a game, right? I'm trying to find out where this reel is made. It shouldn't be that hard to find out where your gear is made at. And it's not a smack at Baits. Again, I'm not trying to dog them or anything. It's just that, me trying to be as intellectually honest and truthful as possible with you guys as we examine products. And a lot of times on the show, we try and cut through the marketing mumbo jumbo to let you guys know exactly what you're getting for your money before you spend it. So I feel like a reel that at least seems like they may not have directly said it, but it seems like a lot of people have this feeling like it's a USA made reel, or it's a reel that is mostly made in the USA or something like that. It just seems inferred, and I'm trying to get to the bottom of this so that I can report back to you guys. And I can't find anything on the internet really anywhere. I look so hard everywhere. Everything is just either marketing speak or people guessing or whatever, and I can't find anything definitive. So the next thing that I did to make this part really short is I opened up the reel and I started trying to look for things in the internal components that I could try and match to something overseas. So I could search these other Chinese reels or Japanese reels or whatever and try and find a match, again, just to figure out where this reel is made at. So I went through, I'm looking at all the stuff in here, and I find the matrix braking system. It's right inside the reel. When you pop off the side cap, you look at it and there's a big red ring and it says matrix braking system MBS 5X44. And that's the thing. It's obviously around the big red ring. And I went online, and after digging around, I was able to find a match to a factory in China that makes this braking system. And the company is called Loonze, Loon as in Nancy, GZE. Loonze something, I don't know how to pronounce it, but the inside of that reel that I found that had the matrix braking system and the picture that I saw online was a direct match to the inside of this Bates Hundo. The exact same red ring, the exact same typeface, the exact same language on the inside. It said matrix braking system MBS 5X44 on that inner ring, and you look at the pictures. I have a picture of both of them side by side that I actually took, and it is an exact match. So at least I found where the braking system is coming from. That gives us a start. So I went to the Loonze website or whatever it's called, and I start looking through and trying to find more info about the braking system, because I thought, okay, right, this is probably just the braking system they sourced out and they put in this reel, and they're still doing a lot of the other stuff. They just don't make braking systems at Bait, so they put this braking system in their reel, right? That's kind of where I thought this was going. So at least I would hopefully find out where part of the reel was coming from. But as I go look at this Loonze website or whatever, it's a Chinese factory, and I'm looking, and they have a little tab that says Our Factory, and a lot of it's in like weird broken English. But when I clicked on some of their photos, they show what their claim to fame is at this Loonze factory, and it's CNC integrated processing. So I clicked on that, and wouldn't you know it, this Chinese factory, Loonze, is known for one-piece CNC'd aluminum frame bait casting reels. And not only that, the Loonze reel that I was looking at on this page featured, wait for it, 6061 aluminum, the exact same aluminum that Bates Hundos are made out of, and they say in their specs that is like their big claim to fame. So I felt pretty confident that I finally found where this reel is made. But the final piece, just to make sure that I wasn't going crazy, is I looked up both of these companies' Instagram pages. I looked up the Bates Instagram page, and I looked up Loonze's Instagram page. The Loonze page has 622 followers, so it is not a big page by any means, but it is the page of this factory, and one of the photos on the page is the exact same photo that Bates uses to show off their CNC process from start to finish on all their marketing material. So it's the same block at first, the same reel at the end. It is the exact same picture, except the one on the Bates page is a little bit more highlighted. They bumped up the brightness a little bit, but it's the exact same photo. So what I'm not sure of is who did it first. I want to be as honest and, maybe trusting as I can here. Was this a case where you had a company in China making these reels already, and then Bates found them, thought they were really cool, thought there was a market for them in the United States, and brought them over here under a new name and some clever marketing? Or did Bates actually design this from scratch, find a company in China to make them, and now that company is making them and selling them too? I don't know for sure, so I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but usually, like 99.9% of the time, it is the other way around. It is where there's something being made over in China. Someone says, hey, that's cool, that's unique, we don't have that over here. Let's rebrand that and bring that over here and sell it here in the United States. And that's at least what it looks like probably happened here. I don't know for sure. It could have been the other way. I'm not trying to, again, take a dump on Bates here. I'm just trying to figure out where this darn reel is made at. So for the 10th time here today, I'm not trying to take a shot at Bates here, because Almost every other company does the same thing. Your Lose reels, your Bass Pro Shops reels, all your reels that you're used to start out being made over in China or somewhere else. They pick the parts, they want to go into them, they say, yep, that looks good. They're built to the United States company's specs, which is obviously what Baits is talking about in that marketing material where it says, hey, we engineer them, we quality control them, we test them, we do all this stuff just like other companies do, and then they're brought over here and they're rebranded and they're sold here in the United States. Almost every company does that. But I just thought it was odd that I couldn't get a straight answer anywhere about where this reel was made. And again, it seemed like there were a lot of implied US and Texas talk here, but no, at least from my personal research, what I've been able to do the past couple days, it looks like these reels are probably made by Lungzi, and they're located in Ningbo City, China, and not made in the United States like so many people seem to think. But the point of this part of the review is just to say that the last, 10 minutes of this review or whatever could have been avoided by just putting made in China on the box or on the reel or answering my question. But instead, we had to put our Nancy Drew hat on. We had to try and figure it out ourselves. So that's the final thing to watch here. Oftentimes, you're going to see companies say things like designed in the United States. Apple is famous for this. When you open up a box of AirPods or you open up a new iPhone, it says the first thing, the text that it says when you open it up, it says designed in California. Well, yeah, right. The guy that told China to make it, yeah, his office might be in California. But make no mistake, that iPhone was made and produced in China, not California, and we all know that. Similar thing happens a lot of times in fishing gear. But like I said, I got to meet one of the guys at iCast, super nice guy, awesome product, but in the spirit of a true review and trying to give you, the customer, as much information as I can before you make a purchase, marketing language in the fishing industry is thick, and sometimes you just have to do your own research to cut through it a little bit. But this is a review of the reel itself, so we talked about it already. The reel itself is very cool. It's unlike anything that I've ever owned. It's scary light. It's very durable. It took a beating. I used it again for a couple months and it hit rocks. It fell off the tailgate. It did everything that I do with my normal gear and it held up just fine. The handles are very comfortable. It casts well and it completely transforms your combo because of that drastic weight reduction. But like any reel, there were a few things that we weren't super pumped about. The first would be the lack of braking options was a bummer. The side plate coming off can be an issue if you're out there on the water. And because it's so much lighter than the other reels, it really does mess with you when you're out there on the water switching back and forth. And it can drastically change the balance point on your rod. And I mean, rods are made to put normal weighted fishing reels on. That's how they test them. That's how they design them. So when you change that reel so drastically, it changes the feel of that rod completely from what it was intended to be. So overall, very cool reel to play with, but not a reel that I think will make it into my everyday lineup, and a reel that I probably will end up trading back in and trying something else. All right, everybody. If you're hearing my voice right now, this is Andrew from the future. This is like 3 days after the original episode airs, and I'm popping back in to give you guys a little bit of additional information. So long story short here, Baits heard the episode. They reached out to provide some additional information to address what they say were either completely wrong information or information that they would like to set straight or provide some additional context for. So we're all about fairness here. I'm all about transparency. So I wanted to add this part into the episode so anybody who listens from here on out, you get kind of, I don't even want to call it both sides because it's not both sides, just more information from the company themselves. They did have a chance to kind of respond and give me a call, and we got to talk through some of the stuff. So the first things first here, I'm not too proud to admit when I'm wrong about something, and I was completely wrong about the dual braking system. So you probably heard earlier in this episode me talk about kind of complaining that there wasn't a secondary way to adjust these brakes, or I couldn't find them outside of like the 1 through 10 knob on the outside. But they told me, and I was able to look it up and like kind of find a video on the internet, there is a way to pop off the side plate. You remove the spool, and then on the side of the spool itself, there are these little like teeth, I guess, where you can move the whole circle of that side of the spool, and you can go 1 through 5 on this little knob right here. And so you can push it to the right or to the left, and that obviously adds or takes away braking on the spool, and that's that centrifugal braking system. So in the middle position, it looks like that's probably stock or normal normal or whatever you want to call it. And then you can go 1 or 2 clicks to the left, which take off brakes. And then you can go 1 or 2 positions to the right, which looks like it adds additional braking. So first and foremost, wanted to pop back in here and address that because I was 100% flat out wrong on that. There are 2 ways to adjust the brakes on this reel. I didn't even see the second option because I'm so used to looking for multiple little tabs in a circular pattern on your spool that you see on like the majority of dual braking system reels. The other thing here though, and I'm just going to be honest, is after going into this reel and adjusting those brakes, I've worked with this thing for like 10 minutes now of just playing with this internal braking system, and I have really small hands, and even I'm having a hard time moving that little tab. So I don't know if it's probably because I don't have any fingernails. I bite my fingernails. So if you're like me, it's going to be hard to move that little piece of plastic to kind of get the teeth to catch 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I had to take the whole spool out of the reel, and then I used a pen, which obviously isn't ideal in any situation. It's not ideal on the water for sure. So those of you that rightfully wrote in at the time and said, hey, the side plate coming off is not a big deal. There's a lot of really expensive reels where the side plate comes off, and you probably shouldn't even have to do anything or, set that side plate down or whatever, because you just go in there and flip the centrifugal brakes and then you put the side plate back on. But now, unfortunately, because this is the way that I have to be able to like adjust the inside of this reel, I have to take the spool all the way out. So now that side plate concern actually is a real concern where I have a better chance of dropping it or setting it down or misplacing it, or it goes over the side of my kayak or whatever, because I do actually have to take the whole spool out of the inside so that I can get a grip on this thing and use, pliers or a pen or something to move these clicks 1 through 5. I'm having a really hard time getting my hand in there. But the big thing here is, yes, it 100% does have a dual braking system. So blame that one on me for never reading manuals or directions or whatever and just taking my new gear immediately out to the water and fishing with it. There is a dual braking system on this reel. And the second thing that I wanted to address here, and I think Bates would like to address here, is the where it's made portion of the episode that you just heard. And so what you heard obviously was my attempt at trying to address listeners' concerns and feelings that this was a USA made reel. And all the information that you just heard was what I was able to find myself. Well, now 3 days later, Bates has heard the episode, and we probably had a 30-ish minute phone call where we went over what I got correct and what they feel was either incorrect or a misrepresentation. So again, in the spirit of fairness, I'm always trying to be honest here. We're never going after a company. We're never having a preconceived agenda or something, right? We're just doing gear reviews, trying to put out all the information that we're able to find and give you guys, again, all the information that we can to help you make better choices. But after the phone call with Bates, the first thing I will say, and simply put, is this a USA made reel? No, it's not. And that was fair, and that was correct. But after talking with Bates, I think what's probably not fair is putting this reel in the same category as every other reel company that opens the Chinese doyo order sheet, tells them what they want, picks out, a handle, a frame, a spool, a tension knob, and then tells them to slap their logo on it. That doesn't seem like the case here. So it sounds like the reason that they continuously obviously harp on the in-house engineering in Texas and all that kind of stuff is because they really are their own designs. It sounds like they do everything down there in terms of, thinking up these reels and designing these reels, the patents, true, again, design work at the computer, making sure that everything's right. But then obviously the reel is made, the reel is assembled and produced overseas. But again, I want to be as fair and as honest here and give them their time, obviously, to respond and make sure that the right information is out there. So Bates said, and I quote, they wrote this to me, "While it's true that many products claim to be made in one particular country, Bates avoids using that language on our packaging because there wouldn't be enough real estate to say where everything is being made, and because it wouldn't be true to say our reels are made in one country." And again, that is directly from Bates. Now, the other thing that they did say was that my box should have had a sticker on it somewhere that says made in PRC, which my box did not have. Who knows where that ended up? I don't know why it's not on my box, but they said that should have been there. Obviously, the PRC stands for People's Republic of China. That's what PRC stands for. If I would have had that sticker on my box, this entire thing would have been avoided because I wouldn't have thought anything of it. But apparently, that sticker is supposed to be on there, but it's not. And then the last thing I wanted to pop in here and say after our conversation with them is, obviously we talked a few minutes ago about the Lunge Z or whatever that company is, right? The factory that I was able to find the connection to, and looks like the same frames, same braking system, same everything. That all is correct. Obviously, they are the same frames, same braking system, but it sounds like it's some sort of partnership between Baits and this Lunge company, where this Lunge makes reels with Baits frames, and it's not the other way around. Kind of confusing, but neither here nor there. The long story short is this. Is the reel made in the USA? No, it's not. That conclusion that we had in the original part of the episode is completely true. But what's not fair, I think, is to characterize, the language that Baits was using of engineered in Texas or engineered in the USA and all that language as some like cynical way of Americanizing a foreign reel. Because after talking to them, it does sound like they have put a ton of time, a ton of effort, a ton of money into these designs, their patents, the whole conception right of these reels. And again, after talking to them, they seem like good guys. They seem like they're making good products. That part of saying, hey, engineered in Texas can mean, they change the color of a knob or something. That's obviously not what's going on here. This is definitely a much more involved operation, which is good. So they are not made in the USA. That part is definitely true, but they've put a lot more work into these than your normal Chinese reels, which I think might have been the attitude that comes through the first part of this episode. So that was just me popping back in to give you guys a little bit more information after having a chance to chat with the company directly. All right, we're going to get to the mailbag here in just a second, powered by Dakota Lithium. But first, we are brought to you in part by Dakota Lithium. Dakota Lithium batteries are my favorite batteries to use out there on the water, whether it's for my electronics, whether it's for my motor, if you're using them for golf carts or you're using it for actual power off the grid or whatever. If you have a camper, Dakota Lithium is the way to go. They're twice the power of traditional batteries. They're half the weight. They charge up to 5 times faster. They last up to 4 times longer. They have 100% US-based customer support, but the big one to me, they have an 11-year warranty standard. You can rest assured that for over a decade from the time you make your purchase with Dakota Lithium, that battery is protected. You can email them, you can call them if you have issues. They will take care of you. That's the best part about buying your batteries through somebody like Dakota Lithium versus going online and trying to find the cheapest battery that you can find with people who don't speak English and will never be able to help you. Heaven forbid you ever have a problem. So that's why I like Dakota Lithium. They're iconic. You see them from a mile away. The blue battery with the red top. When I see that, to me, that screams dependability. And right now, you can get your own Dakota Lithium batteries by going to www.dakotalithium.com, and we're going to save you 10% as always by using code TACKLETALK10 at checkout. That's 10% off your next battery purchase, a brand that doesn't normally get discounted. They don't normally need to do discounts, but because you listen to Tackle Talk, you save 10% every single day. Code TACKLETALK10 over at www.dakotalithium.com, the official lithium battery of Bassmaster. All right, let's jump into the mailbag, powered by Dakota Lithium.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast Mailbag, powered by Dakota Lithium Batteries. Adventure awaits at dakotalithium.com.
All right, the first question here in the mailbag today is from Booker, and he says, "Hey Andrew, I'm 17 and I live in northern Colorado, and I have just recently started listening to the show and love it and cannot wait to tune in every Tuesday to gain more knowledge. My question is, when you're running braid to mono, is it okay to use a swivel or should I just tie them together, primarily when I'm using a big swim bait setup? I want to know what is the strongest, as well as if using a swivel will restrict the amount of bites I'm getting. Thanks, Booker." Hey man, so short answer to your question, no, I would not use a swivel to connect your braid to your leader, because if you think about it, say you have a leader that's 2 foot long. So you have braid mainline, you got a fluoro leader or a mono leader or whatever, and you have 2 foot of that leader material. Well, now if you use a swivel to connect your mainline to your leader, now you have this swivel that's a little heavier than your line, pulling your line down 2 feet away from your bait, which obviously can affect your action. So the only reason that I would use a snap swivel to connect your main line to your leader is if you don't know how to tie a proper knot to connect the two. And if that's the case, there's no shame in that, then yeah, you can use a swivel, because a swivel is way better than an improperly tied or poor knot. But I would say no. I would say just take your time and learn a good connecting knot. Don't worry about the snap swivel to connect your leader to your main line. I personally use a double uni. I've never had an issue with it. Some guys will swear by an Albright. Some guys will swear by an FG knot, but the double uni works for me for both small baits, big baits, lines of all diameter. I've never had an issue with a double uni. So I would sit down, learn a good connection knot, and just never have to worry about the swivel ever again. The next question is from Brogan, and he says, hey man, I listen to the pod almost every day while at work, and I think I have gone through just about every episode by now. But I do got a question. I'm located in Central Oregon where we have huge deep reservoirs that have loads of fish in them. Recently, my buddy and I picked up a 12-foot John boat for this spring and summer, and I would love to figure out better spots to actually key into now that I'm able to get out in a boat. I've never fished with any sort of graph and just know what's down there from what I've gotten snagged on and topographical maps. So my question is, do you have any ideas on where to target and what to throw when the water is deep, about 140 to 160 foot channels? I know that may not be in your wheelhouse, but maybe you have some insight. Thanks, man. Keep up the hard work. Oh, man. Well, thank you for the question, Brogan. I would say, I'm going to be honest here, this doesn't happen too terribly often, but my answer to your question is going to be, I don't know. And I am never too proud to admit when I don't know something, and this is definitely one of those times. If you're asking me about fishing 140 to 160 foot deep water, that is something that is so foreign to me and outside my normal fishing that I wouldn't even know where to begin. For reference, like around here, the deepest water that I've personally ever seen on a graph was like 80 foot deep, and that is right at the biggest dam on the biggest lake in my area. And it's an area that you don't fish, right? It's just this giant deep spot, and the rest of the lake is like 15 foot deep or something. So, man, I wish I had something more to tell you, but this question, I guess, is just going to stay in here to show everybody listening that if I get a question that I don't know the answer to, I won't cut it out. I won't make up something. I will just happily admit that I don't know. And unfortunately, this is one of those cases. So sorry, Brogan. All right. And the last question here is from Michael. And he says, hey, Andrew, I saw you at the expo last week and meant to ask you. I know you had those Jigmasters swim bait heads on your table. What's the difference between throwing a swim bait on one of those versus a regular ball head jig? Thanks, Michael. That's a great question and one that I can actually answer. So I do have a good answer for you. And we had this conversation with a few people at the booth last week. And the biggest difference to me between a ball head and something like those sled heads is range of motion of your swim bait. So say you have like a 3-inch boot tail soft plastic swim bait. For the sake of the conversation here, we'll say it's a Big Joshy because that was what we were talking about at the show last week at the booth, because their booth was like right beside us. But if that swim bait is on a regular ball head, that body roll that bait has is probably like 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So think of a clock head, think of 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, back and forth, almost like windshield wipers, right? That's how that top of that bait is going. So if the top of the bait is pointed at 12, as it rolls, it goes 9 to 3, 9 to 3, 9 to 3. So that about 180 degree range of motion is what we're talking about and what you're getting with something like a ball head, a really wide body roll back and forth. And then if you take that same bait and you put it on a sled head design, that range of motion and that body roll skinnies up to like 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock instead of 9 to 3. So it keeps that tighter action because the weight of that swim bait head is so much more concentrated at the bottom of the head versus the top. So it's really cool to watch. I've done it many times on the water. Put the same bait on 2 separate head designs and see what it does to it. And you'll learn really fast that the reason why there are different head designs and why they exist is because it can change the action of your bait quite a bit, whether that's a subtle change or a drastic one. So like in cold water, in deep water, in pressured water, to me, that skinnier body roll and that tighter action makes a difference and helps me out. All right, that is today's episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. I appreciate you all. As always, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you listen. Find us on the web, tackletalkpodcast.com. There you can submit a mailbag question. You can email us, tackletalkpodcast@gmail.com, and we will see y'all right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2021. Please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.